Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Gruesome and Grotesque video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. I seem to be on a roll when it comes to sharing these stories. As always, I'll pretty much only post something whenever I come across any one of my news feeds where it's such interesting info, something that's so gruesome, so grotesque that I definitely have to share it here. Such is the case when it comes to this story that made me squirm whenever I was reading this information there in my news feed. In fact, I can bet that some of you, after you finish hearing this video, you're probably never going to look at a piece of food the same way again. But it has to do with this. You're looking at it now. If you can believe it, this is a 20-foot tapeworm that was found within a man's stomach. And the stories and the tales, the info associated with how he got it there and then what it took to take it out, it's definitely not for the squeamish. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that. In this case, the story of the 20-foot tapeworm found within a man from China. So here's all the info. So this man, who has remained anonymous, it seems like the doctors who treated him at the location at the hospital have decided to not release his name, probably because of the condition, and all in all it's still a little bit somewhat of an embarrassing thing. But they stated that he was a man who was 38 years old, living somewhere there in central China, who came one day into an area there in the hospital complaining of stomach pains. This actually had been going on for several years. He had stated that he had experienced some form of stomach pains, also vomiting, also losing appetites, especially whenever he was hungry, but then he would feel like he no longer had a need for an appetite. And then in other cases, more alarmingly, he was losing weight as long as feeling weak. So even though he was eating as much as can be, he was still able to lose weight. And in fact, at one point between doctors' visits, he was there and he lost around 11 to 22 pounds between several different visits. So one visit to the other, he had lost, alarmingly, that much weight. But the main reason why he decided to go to a different doctor, because all the other doctors, everyone else that was treating him before, wasn't really recognizing the symptoms, was because of this. If you're looking at this image now, this is again not for the squeamish, but this happens to be part of a tapeworm that he found there within his toilet. Yes, indeed, he was doing the good old number 2 in his toilet, and then when he must have seen this come out of it and then inspect it, I'm sure that must have been truly horrifying for it. It's actually a part of the tapeworm itself. It's a segment of it that contains eggs. The way I was reading the information was these tapeworms that get stuck in someone's intestines, eventually they start shedding certain parts of their body that they no longer need, and when that happens, it comes out of a person's stool into the toilet, and that's where you can see this. Also, he saw this, which you're looking at here. This is an egg that he found also within that particular toilet, and so of course he was just hugely alarmed at what was occurring. So he went to the doctor, he showed that information, they were able to inspect it, and then of course based on his story they were able to diagnose him as having what's called colloquially as a beef tapeworm, which you're looking at more pictures of here, but at least the official name is known as Taenia sanguinata. And this is actually something, it's rare in some places of the world, but it's more common in others. It seems to be more common in areas just where it seems like it's more poor, where there's lesser chance of cooking beef or pork in some cases to a full degree. And so when that happens, there's a higher risk of someone having this within that small piece of food that they're about to eat. And of course, this comes from the actual cow or the pig eating some other parts, let's say some areas that have eggs with these tapeworms, and it's just a cyclical cycle. The cows eat it, and then they in turn get eaten, and then it passes along to the humans, and then in some cases the humans pass it along to others. It's just a crazy situation where this tapeworm, based on the history of within certain patients, just grows within someone's body, and then depending on how long they've been there, they can grow actually up to 30 feet. In this case, it was theorized that this 38-year-old man from China, must have had it around 2 years, because 20 feet long is around the time period of 2 years or so. So anyone that has it even longer gets to know that they had it for actually a longer set of years instead of 2 years. So these tapeworms, the way I was reading this information, these beef tapeworms, for the most part, they almost seem to have, in a weird way, a symbiotic relationship with the host body that they're in. They try not to make as much nuisance as possible, if that makes sense. So anybody that has a tapeworm within their bodies, there's a good chance you'll actually never know it. You may have like a small amount of pain here and there within your stomach. You may experience just a small amount of nausea, especially after you eat. But again, for the most part, these tapeworms, their evolutionary build is quite genius. They're basically able to grow within someone's body and then not become any kind of attention to themselves, so that way people don't know, that, hey, I need to get this rid of, I need to get out, I need to get this out of my body. I guess this just happens where in this case, when this tapeworm was causing more of a severe pain within this guy's stomach, then that's what alerted him. And of course, everything else that he found within the stool, then that was something else completely different. So if you want to hear the resolution as to what occurred, well, once he was diagnosed with this, he was given some form of oral injection, something there. I don't know if it was a pill or if it was something else, but it caused him, get this, within 2.5 hours later to excrete this entire tapeworm from his body. You do the math, you figure it out how that occurred, but I can imagine that he must have stayed on that toilet for a long time, considering that 22 plus feet had to come out within his body. So this tapeworm was able eventually to get taken out, and then that was it. He eventually felt better, and about 2 or 3 months later, he returned back to normal. His weight was back to normal, and the way that the doctors stated there, the ones that treated him, they stated that he was no longer going to eat any more raw beef. It's crazy, but this man who this diet that he had, it explicitly had raw beef in it. It's not like he was eating it by accident or it was just too poor to have it cooked somewhere. No, he was actually eating it raw, or he was eating it very, very rare, and then that's what caused him to obtain this tapeworm. So again, I was mentioning at the beginning of the video, some of you out there may never look at food the same way again. I don't know how some of you cook your beef out there, as like when it comes to hamburgers or when it comes to other types of meats. In my case, everything is always well done, always, always, always. But I don't know about others who have it very rare, bloody, that kind of stuff. So it just goes to show you'll probably never have another look at this in the same way again. One other interesting fact that I read when it comes to tapeworms is this. In the early 1900s, it was a voluntary form of a diet, if you could believe that, as crazy as that sounds. So the way the story goes with that is, people back then knew the causes and the after effects of tapeworms. They knew that whenever someone had it within their stomachs or in their intestines, it would cause people to lose weight. I mean, that's what happened, obviously, to this man, this 38-year-old man from China. But some people voluntarily would eat these pills that contained, for lack of a better term, infant tapeworms within them, and then they would have them grow within their body. I mean, are you squeamish yet? They would have these tapeworms grow. They would grow to a full length, and then lo and behold, the people would start losing weight. Can you believe that? That was an actual fad in the early 1900s. And then the idea was, after they've lost a certain amount of weight, they would take some special medicine, kind of like what this guy was given, and then that way they would be able to lose the tapeworms and then at least have some form of health back afterward. The only problem, though, was apparently back then, the medicine that they took and the way that they lost this tapeworm, the way they got it out, was far more painful, far more excruciating, and there were severe after effects from whatever was occurring. So it was something that people voluntarily did still, even with all the negative stuff associated with it. People would still do this because it became almost a form of a mini fad. Thank goodness nowadays, of course, that's not really done. Instead, it seems to be more accidental when it comes to getting these beef or pork tapeworms. When it, let's say, when people just accidentally undercook things, or maybe don't have the resources to fully cook them. But still, I mean, you have to stretch yourself when it comes to having this in today's world, having these tapeworms be within someone. Because at least if you cook something fully through, then you'll never have something like that occur. But what do you guys think as far as this particular gruesome tale? 20-foot thing straight out of the world of Alien growing inside this man's body, and it was no doubt it was just wriggling there at some point within his stomach or within his intestines too. When I was reading that, I could just imagine it just moving around within someone's body, and then you're wondering like just what the heck is going on. But if anyone has anything else I might have missed, any other parts or stories that someone has heard when it comes to other parts of the world as far as tapeworms, again, this is not that rare of occurrence. It does happen out there, then please post those comments below. So, all right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.